Hey everybody, just in case you forgot my name because it's been a while, I put it right there on the slide, Michelle Kitchens. This whole semester we've been talking about people, how important they are to organizations, what they mean to the success of a nonprofit or the government or the business community. And so one of the things that I wanted to explore was how important is trust to that relationship. And what I found was there's tons of research about trust. It may be one of the most studied topics in business or in employment is trust. What does it mean? How does it affect your success as an organization? So what I want to talk about today is why it's important, what the research and the studies say about that, and how do we build that? How do we build trust? So does everybody feel the warm glow of trust at your office? So it turns out that warm glow is oxytocin, and trust is more than just a soft skill.
Let's talk about the state of trust. So the Society for Human Resource Management did a study 3 years ago where they looked for the top factors related to job satisfaction. And what they found was respect was number one, and trust was number three, although trust balanced out equally with compensation. So as you can see, these two soft skills, related soft skills, are really important to employees. Another thing that's out there is the gender gap as it relates to trust. Women do trust less at work. These next 3 slides are from the Edelman Trust Barometer study that was done just last year. This first one talks about the gender gap for trust. You'll see the women are the top line, and they trust less overall in regards to their workplace. In particular, the largest gap is in places where they work in the business world. So I couldn't resist including this slide. It's about the public divide in trust between the two political affiliations in the United States. You'll notice that overall the trust index is really close. There's only about a 5-point difference in Democrats and Republicans. But then when you look at who they each trust more or less, that gap gets interesting. Republicans are more likely to trust business than the Democrats are, and Democrats are more likely to trust the media than Republicans are. And right now, Democrats trust the government less. What does it mean when employees trust their place of work? So what you see here is some things where the employee-employer relationship and how people engage. You see markers for advocacy, loyalty, engagement, commitment. And what you find there is when employees trust where they work, they're more likely to do all of those things. They're more likely to engage on behalf of the organization's mission. They're more likely to be committed to it when they trust the organization that they work for. And I think that's really important when you look at the nonprofit sector or government, where you have a really focused missional goal and what that means for those organizations.
So earlier I told you that warm glow you feel in regards to trust was oxytocin. So I want to talk a little bit about a study that Paul Zak did testing oxytocin levels when people invest trust in each other. What he did was he had people display trust behaviors and did blood draws both before and after. And what he found was people produce oxytocin when they're trusted. And oxytocin, for those of you who don't know, is what we call the love hormone. Women produce it when they give birth or they breastfeed. All people produce it when they have sex. So it's really interesting that it exists in regards to trust. And what he also found that this was true in all cultures, and in even tribal cultures in the Amazon, when they did the blood draws, everyone was producing oxytocin in regards to trust. He even found that when you gave people synthetic oxytocin, they were more likely to trust. So it's a really cool tie-in to see that this is not just a physical thing. It's not just a soft skill. There's an actual physiological response to trust.
We talked about the state of trust. Let's talk about the benefits of trust. Why do you want to work in a high trust organization rather than a low trust organization? And what you see here is some of the attributes of high trust organizations. There's less stress, there's more productivity, fewer sick days in a high trust organization, more engagement, more satisfaction, less burnout. That all leads to higher retention. What we found too is in high trust organization, there's more innovation because people feel secure. There's less turnover. People are more likely to amplify the message of a high trust organization. There's better communications, which just leads to more productivity.
So it's clear that we all need to build trust. So let's get down to the things that everybody really wants to know. How do you build trust?
We have to really break down organizational versus individual trust. So what you see is a chart from the Mishner study where it talks a little bit about interpersonal behaviors and institutional trust building. And what you see is it's important for an organization to hire people that have shared values. It's important for an organization to communicate and be open. Have policies that encourage communication, encourage employees to share. It's also important for an organization to have a rewards and recognition program that really recognizes employees when they excel. That's what you see there. Compensation and benefits could qualify for that. And then it's important to have solid hiring practices. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, but you've got to have people that will inspire these trust behaviors. I wanted to look at the personal attributes that inspire trust at work. And so I looked at several different studies, some identifying one attribute, some identifying as many as 12. And one of the most popular ones, one of the ones that's cited the most often, is this model from 1995. And it is the popular ABI model. ABI stands for ability, benevolence, and integrity. Those all feed into trust. They're affected, of course, by how much somebody has a natural inclination to trust. But you have to have risk in trust as well. Like, people don't have a need to trust if there's no risk. And as we've talked about before, being employed is a risky thing. It's your livelihood. It's something that's super important to you. So you want to really recognize that when you're talking about trust and personal attributes and why it's important at work. And so we'll talk a little bit about ability, benevolence, and integrity in the next slide.
So let's talk a little bit more about the ABI model: ability, benevolence, and integrity. The first one there, ability, seems obvious. People are more likely to trust somebody that knows how to do their job, somebody that's competent. And that means the organization has a big part to play here. Did they hire the right person? Have they invested in that person to make them a better leader, to make sure they have the skills they need? Does the individual constantly work to be more competent, to be more able? This is important. You can't slack off if you are in a position of management. You have to have ability and competence if you want your people to trust you. The second one there is benevolence, which seems like the softest of soft skills, right? Are you kind to your employees? Do they feel good about working there? Do you have leave policies that are compassionate, that recognize that people have homes and families? Those are the kinds of things that build loyalty and commitment to an organization. One anecdotal example is the president and CEO of Texas Roadhouse has forgone their salary during the pandemic to pay the frontline workers. And that, I think, is going to really make those workers feel seen by the organization, make them feel important to Texas Roadhouse. The last one in ABI is integrity. And I said this is where good character meets consistency. You can't just be consistent, because you can be consistently horrible. You can't just have good character, because you might not implement that on a daily basis. So integrity is really important. Do you do what you say you're going to do when you said you were going to do it? It really matters in regards to how much employees are going to trust you. onto ABI Plus. What I found was while ability, benevolence, and integrity are frequently cited, there were a couple of others that were out there that really came up again and again. The first one being communication. Does your organization have an open door policy? Do employees feel like they can share? Do they feel like they can trust their supervisor or even their peers to be open with them? One business leader said you either have trust or you have suspicion, and the lack of communication builds suspicion. The other thing that was out there frequently was the ability to invest in your employees in autonomy. Do you trust them? Do you let them do their job? And when they do their job well, do you recognize them? The researcher, Zach, who also did the oxytocin research, called it ovation. And I just love the use of that word. I thought it was really spoke to what we're talking about here is, do you celebrate your team's victories? It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it can just be verbal recognition, but people really appreciate and, interestingly enough, trust people that give credit where credit is due.
When I was looking for inspiration on this topic, I found this really cool video about the Navy's Blue Angels and how they perform the amazing things they do. Thousands of feet up in the air, going incredible speeds, just feet apart. And how they do this is a trust exercise, a really dangerous trust exercise. What you see on the left is a photograph of the pilots while they're flying. They are looking at their leader. They trust this person. This person leads them. He flies Jet 1, the man on top, and you see how they all look at him. They don't fly by controls. They don't look at their gauges. They look at their leader. So trust is really important in that relationship. It's important in all our relationships. I hope that's something that we really take away, but I thought it was amazing to look at it in terms of the Blue Angels.
What are our important takeaways? Trust is key to job satisfaction. It's grown via ability, integrity, compassion, communication, and rewards. It can be reinforced through organizational policies like great leave policies or good compensation. You have to be deliberately trying to build trust. It's not an accident. Trust takes time. So I hope this is useful to look at your relationships at work and how you can build trust, both with the people you supervise and peer to peer, and take away some really good lessons from the research and the business and nonprofit leaders that are out there. So thanks for letting me present on trust. I want to say this is my very first time using Keynote, so I hope it turns out okay. I definitely learned a lot of things through YouTube the last couple of days. All right, thanks again, and let's build some trust.